We kind of jumped in to the market. We did a lot of market research.
The Mentor asset that Mike and Lorie own is, I live and operate in Cleveland, but it's on the east side. It's about 45 minutes to the east of downtown Cleveland in a town called Mentor. And then they own another 50-unit complex down in Columbus, which is about 2 hours from Cleveland.
We're not the greatest at hiring, but now we're slow to hire and quick to fire.
All right. Hey, Mike and Lorie, what's going on? We're just going to jump right into it. Good to see you guys on the other side of the country. How are you doing? Let's talk a little real estate.
Sounds like
we're doing great.
Awesome. So Mike and Lorie, you guys are primarily, from what I understand, for knowing you guys for a few years, primarily doing high-end fix and flips, remodels, primarily in California. But a few years ago, you guys decided to jump into additionally adding multifamily units and bought a few kind of mid-sized projects, 48, 50 units, and have added that to your portfolio. So what I want to ask you today is really kind of one major question, which is coming from single family, jumping into multifamily and adding that to your portfolio. Let's talk a little bit about today. What do you know now about buying multifamily, about owning hundreds of doors of rental properties, and especially owning buildings that are not near where you live? You guys are investing primarily in Ohio and other places, not in California when it comes to multifamily. What are some things that you've learned?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, having a good team is enormous. We kind of jumped in to the market. We did a lot of market research, thought we, knew a lot about the market, which I think was on point, but, building our team, property manager, contractors, et cetera, was something that we thought we had in place on the first building we bought. Subsequently fired property manager and, ironically led to us hiring a really good one. So, building the team is super important, also researching market, et cetera, which we did because we're doing it absentee. So having, honest, trustworthy, quality people was, is important, super important. So we have since bought something in Columbus similar to what, our other asset in Mentor and our small building in Bedford, but we have a really good property manager there. And thanks to Dave, we found a good contractor. So that's thanks to Josh, thanks to you. And we, that Dave's help was enormous, in doing the remodels that we did. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the team building. Like when you bought the complex, the first property manager didn't work out. Why do you think that happened? Like what were some expectations maybe that you had that they weren't meeting, or things that you thought that would happen that didn't happen, that you thought, okay, this isn't going to work out, I'm going to move on to somebody else?
Yeah. So he was, we really liked him. He shall remain nameless. And, everything that we talked about with him, he was great. He kind of pushed the actual management control off onto a young gal who wouldn't return calls. We kind of secret shopped it, wouldn't return calls, didn't return texts, would show the property like once a week for on her schedule. I think it was probably a second job for her. So that's where it kind of fell down, in terms of that. And when the lease up wasn't occurring quickly enough, we did another secret shop, and sure enough, she was dropping the ball. So we let him go, hired a new gal who, has done a great job. Matter of fact, we're 100% occupied as of last month. So
on both assets?
No, on the Mentor asset. The other one
that's great.
Almost 90 now on that one. So,
and you have one manager, right? That's going back and forth from Columbus.
No, one manager for Cleveland and one manager for Columbus.
Got it. Just so our audience is clear, the Mentor asset that Mike and Lorie own is, I live and operate in Cleveland, but it's on the east side. It's about 45 minutes to the east of downtown Cleveland in a town called Mentor. And then they own another 50-unit complex down in Columbus, which is about 2 hours from Cleveland. So the assets, you can definitely get to them in the same day. You could stop at one, drive 2 hours, get to the other, drive back, do it all in the same day. but it's not really ideal that you would have one manager going back and forth and trying to show units. Preferably, you'd have somebody that's there that could show a unit on a walk-in, like somebody walks in off the street and they're available, they're there, and they could show the unit. So 100% in Menor and 90% in Columbus. And so your expectation that wasn't met at the beginning, and this is part of team building, right? You're building a team. You have an expectation. You wanted somebody that was going to be there, that was going to show the units. You were basically in the middle of a big value add, turning the units, completely turning over the tenant base, and then leasing the units for $300, $400, $500 more than what they were previously leased for. So you got to have somebody there that's basically kind of reputation management, that is telling the story of you guys as owners, telling the story of what this complex is going to look like or how it's going to be managed, and why is it worth, instead of $800 a month in rent, why is it worth $1,300, $1,400 a month in rent? And your expectation was that somebody would be there on a regular basis. They clearly weren't, right? And so how did you cure the problem? How did you find the new property manager that now is meeting your expectations?
Well, we flew out and interviews. Well, we hired somebody to go out and kind of oversee some of the construction while we were gone. We flew out, interviewed the top 2 candidates, and hired her. And, she's been really, really terrific. Hands on.
Yeah, just to add to that, we kind of shopped the other apartment complexes in the area, and we found that the best looking apartment complex was our competition, and that manager, it was just a leasing agent that was in there, and they didn't have any interest in talking to us about managing. But then the person that we hired to kind of help us out of our boots on the ground there dug a little further and happened to find out that the lady that we ended up hiring was like the supervisor of that property, and she ended up taking us on as a side job. So worked out pretty well.
Oh, great. So did the property manager that you end up hiring, was it a result of the secret shop?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
Great. So this is one of I think, the secrets to really good property management and ultimately really good ownership is secret shopping. I mean, how many times did I tell you guys I secret shop my buildings almost every week? I show up unannounced. I walk around in my gym clothes and my tennis shoes and a hoodie and just kind of look around. And secret shopping your own buildings is the only way you're really going to get the truth, right? Because property managers tend to tell you everything that is good and leave out everything that is bad or the challenging stuff. So do you secret shop your buildings now? If you guys live in San Diego and you got to come all the way to Ohio, do you fly in? Do you kind of trust this manager now based on your experience? Or how does that go?
We come out about once a quarter physically. And then we also have some people that we ask to call about leasing and go check on the property. And yeah, that happened recently on our Columbus apartment. We were having a really hard time getting things leased, and we're trying to, we got 12 units renovated. They were ready to rent. And then month 1, nothing got leased. Month 2, nothing got leased. We started to get really concerned, staged a model. We got a website going. We were trying to do everything we could to get these things leased, get an online presence. And then we sent somebody over there, secret shop or whatever. And yeah, just like you were saying before.
The outside was the grass wasn't mowed. The step going up to the model, the stairs loose,
shopping carts on the property,
just stupid stuff like that cannot happen.
So needless to say, that property manager has been given a 30-day notice.
Yeah. Good. No, that's, so what else have you learned? You're into this now for almost 3 years or so since you bought the one in Menor?
2, I think.
It's been 2 years since we bought.
A little like 2 years.
Yep.
So secret shopping your buildings, right, is obviously a lesson that you've learned. Making sure that you have a very active salesperson that's doing leasing and property management very proactively is something that we deeply care about. After 24 months, what other lessons have learned, or what expectations did you have going in that are different today?
I don't know if our expectations were a whole lot different. We built that, pretty large, wholesaling and flipping business. So we knew that the team was important for sure. So we're not the greatest at hiring, but now we're slow to hire and quick to fire, I guess is is the word, the term that everybody, throws out there. So vetting, people, we also had, two other assets, out of state, one in Mississippi and one in Oklahoma. And, we've learned that I think buying in B class or better areas is so much easier than, we had two C class buildings, actually one in Phoenix as well. All were C class, all were heavy lifts. Tenants were a pain in the butt. So, I'd say C plus or better is kind of our niche. I don't really want to get into, rougher tenant bases that they'll pay or are problematic. So like Mentor's been a dream. The tenants, we have like on a monthly, maybe one tenant that is late out of 48. The tenant base, they all have jobs, that's important. And Columbus, has been a rougher go, but, now, it's least, it's trending, towards the black big time now. So we can build on that. And, I think we have 3 or 4 more that need to be renovated as also.
And I can also add that a thing that I've learned that I wish I knew before was to really vet the partners that you're going in on the deal with. Make sure that they have the same work ethic as you and that you're going to be communicating with them, on a regular basis and not people that they've delegated to, they hired to deal with you type thing. And then also I was thinking that when you were asking that, our big thing is transformations and taking the ugliest house in the neighborhood and turning it into the best. And it's really not what we're doing right now is kind of the same on a larger scale, transforming the asset from a dog, to really a high performing quality place where people can live. Because in Mentor, it's just been a night and day. The tenant base has been turned over. The exterior looks great. The people are happy. The rents are high. So I see that
the pool is nice now, even though you can never live in Ohio.
So flippy is not that different, actually. You know what I mean? It's not that different than transforming a whole building.
Are there some questions? So you mentioned vetting partners, right? And so whether you're investing virtually, like you guys from San Diego into the Ohio market, you've also mentioned Phoenix and these other markets that you've done deals, but you mentioned vetting partners and making sure that everybody's carrying their own weight and the same expectations. Mm-hmm. Is there some questions or what questions do you think you wished you would have asked, or how could you have better vetted those partners to make sure you were on the same page 2 years after acquiring the building? Because unwinding a partnership where you start, go in together, and you're on all the documents together and the operating agreement and all these kind of things together, sometimes getting rid of a partner can be very difficult. So what kind of questions or what kind of things do you wish you had done a few years ago to make sure you maybe vetted them out better or just had a closer, understanding of who was going to do what?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to?
I think in a perfect world to, really meet, at the asset or, on a Zoom call to really, what do you see this doing in the future? So I don't know if it's even a question that you could really ask someone. It's more of getting a feel for, what are you going to add to this? What are our roles? And we had really clearly defined roles. And at the end of the day, like the partnerships that we have are good, but we did have one that went south that we had to pay off because he had no interest in fulfilling his responsibilities. It was very clear. And you're absolutely right. We should have really gone deeper with him. I don't know if there was a question we could have asked him, but
I think you just need to know that your values are the same. Sometimes you make judgments about people that you shouldn't make assumptions. You think that because you're in the same group or you both want to buy apartments or houses or whatever, that you both have the end goal. The end goal is the same. And I think with us, we made assumptions, and it probably would have been a lot better to have some of the harder conversations. I think you're so excited when you're getting a deal that you just want to get it together. You want to get it to the finish line, and you think that everything's going to work out And it does. It has for us, but there have been a few bumps along the way because of our expectations, and our partner's expectations may not have been the same.
And to add to that, I mean, we care really deeply. Not that our partners don't care, but it's like, I think we put a lot more of our effort and time and energy and thought into these deals than our partners have. And it's kind of puzzling. Like, we expect the same energy. We expect the same level of effort. And, in life, I'm sure in life, not everybody has the same work ethic. Not everybody has the same, expectations. Yes. So I think Lorie's 100% right.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest, challenges or things that I've noticed being an entrepreneur and owning real estate at scale is that when somebody says they agree to own a lane, like a partner, and they say, I'm going to own this lane, like it's a property management lane, or it's a construction lane, or it's a capital raising lane, whatever the lane is, my expectation is that that person is fully owning it, meaning they're creating the strategy and they're executing that strategy that's in line with the greater vision of the company. And when I've had partners in the past that didn't work out, it was usually because they thought, hey, I'm going to execute this lane, but you still got to tell me what to do. And I'm like, no, dude, you're a partner. Like, you figure out what to do. Like, you figure out what's the best for the company, bring it to the team. We can talk about it. We can vote on it if we need to, whatever. But you have to be the one that's creatively thinking about how to advance this lane forward. Right. So I love raising money. You guys know me. I love to raise capital, and work with investors. And so when I say I'm going to raise money, I'm basically saying I'm taking on all the responsibility. I'm going to figure out the software. I'm going to figure out the autoresponder. I'm going to figure out the follow-up. I'm going to figure out the Zoom calls, the podcasts, how the conversation should go, what the follow-up should be. I'm going to get the PPM in order, the subscription agreement, figure out how do they sign it? Do they sign it digitally, physically? How do they wire the money? And I'm going to get all the money in the house. I'm going to own it from A to Z. Other people that I have had partnerships with in the past that didn't work out, it was like, no, dude, like, you're responsible for construction, which means you got to do everything I just described for capital, but you got to figure all that out and you got to do it all, or build the team underneath you that's going to do it all. Some people think like being a partner is I'm going to be in the discussions, in the important rooms, in the important talks, but I'm not going to have any fulfillment responsibility or execution responsibility. I have had partners like that. And they're like, no, dude, like, you kind of have to work too, right? You got to kind of do it all. And so for me, that was, is that kind of what happened on your start as well?
Articulated it quite well. For us, our lane is operations, but we also wore all the other hats
And acquisition
and
asset management, construction management,
alone. We pretty much wore all the hats, even though we were a partner, a majority partner, but still a partner. And the other half or part, I'm not going to say they didn't own their lane, but it wasn't owned to, the degree that we thought, because, they have an employee that's essentially running things, which is fine. But at the end of the day, I think, the first fail with our construction manager, clearly you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
Really.
Do you own it? Do you really own it? Like, are you really going to go fix the problems? So Mike and Lorie, last question, and definitely want to, have you tell our audience where they can connect with you online, your website, things like that before we wrap up. But before I get there, what do you see now after a couple years of getting into this business and buying a couple pretty significant projects, multi-million-dollar projects, and doing it halfway across the country? Where can you forecast the future? Like, what do you think the next steps are? Like, where do you think your real estate investing business goes next? Are you going to continue to do your, fix and flips and wholesaling as your core income, and then continue to build multifamily on the side? Are you going to continue to invest in other markets like you've done and spread yourselves out? Do you see yourself lasering in on just a few markets? So now that this is part of your business and part of your portfolio, where do you think this happens over the next 5 years or so?
Well, I think we're going to definitely continue to buy multifamily. Our flipping is more an ancillary business for us now. We don't do any wholesaling. We're doing maybe 4 or 5 flips a year. They're higher end. And of course, probably heard we're buying a winery up in San Diego. So it's kind of like, it's very expensive project property. So we're kind of, I'd say down the rabbit hole on that right now. But, we see ourselves buying probably at least 1 or 2 more buildings in the Cleveland market, because Mentor's going to be up for a refi here and a capital event pretty soon. And then Columbus probably not far behind. So the whole Burr strategy hopefully will work out as planned, and we'll continue doing what we're doing with our team, because our team is good. Now we've got that settled. So, I don't know if Cha-Cha agrees, but
yeah, I mean, I think that we have the asset management and the construction down and the property management piece down. That's our strength. And we kind of realized that when we were acquiring the Columbus property, that the capital raising wasn't our forte, but we definitely know that we can, I don't know if you want to say flip apartments, not really, but we know how to do repositioning pretty well, and we know how to run the asset well. So that's our strength. So yeah, we would love to do some more. We find the right opportunity.
Yeah. It's all about the people, right? I had breakfast this morning with an investor who's been with me for a long, long time. And it looks like Albie just jumped into the room. Mm-hmm. Hey, Albie, why don't you jump off and jump back out in a minute? Oh, you're good, man. Yeah, Albie's a whole nother stud. Wait till you hear his story. But he has a massive, massive EXP business with thousands and thousands of realtors underneath him. But I think, to your point, and I talk to Albie about this too in a minute, about once you build the infrastructure of the software and the people, and you realize that team, which is the first thing you mentioned, was team building. It's funny that now we're full circle talking about the team, is that you have a team now that you're confident in Ohio, in Columbus, in Cleveland, and now you should lean in on that, right? And just go buy another building, another 100 units, another 200 units, and give it back to the same team, because now it becomes easier. Like the knowledge, the gotchas, what you don't know what you don't know. Now that you know so much more. And so it's like, hey, I've got this team I can lean in on. I'm going to go buy more properties and give it to them and let them just go do the same thing over and over and over. So definitely do that. Mike, Lorie, thanks so much for joining me today on the Accelerated Investor Podcast. For those folks that want to engage with you, go to your website, learn about the winery, or learn about your investments. Where can they reach you guys?
I'll let her.
www.blue-oceancapitalholdings.com is our website. And we also advise apartments on Instagram.
All right. Very good. Awesome stuff, guys. Thanks so much for joining me today. Look forward to pushing this out to all of our followers. Thanks so much for being on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.